So we're going to go to the financial literacy website today. If you don't already have it bookmarked, please do so. You can see the website address at the top. It should also be in your OneNote. So today we're moving on to budget. So we're going to click here on budget and go through a lot of instructions. So once you come to budget, notice that we have a file, we have information about a house, buying a car, and completing the budget and what's expected of you around the budget, okay? So first of all, there's some information here about budgets, and I'm just going to talk about this. So we're going to create a monthly budget based on the yearly income that we researched using BLS.gov, where we found the lowest 10% of pay for our career. Okay, so what we found was how much you get paid in a year, and we're going to be dividing that up into months and creating a monthly budget. Most people who are salaried get paid monthly. Some get paid every other week, but it's very common for people to have monthly budgets because you get your bills once a month. And so that's why we have monthly budgets. So we're going to use a simple budgeting method called the 50-30-20 rule. This method says that 50% of your budget should go to your needs, 30% of your budget should be allocated to wants, and 20% should be allocated to your financial goals. Now, for some of you, this will be easier than others, depending on how much pay you have that you researched yesterday. So the first thing we need to do is open our budget file. So right here where it says open the budget file and save it to your math folder, I want you to click on that link, and that's going to open a file in Excel for you. So go ahead and click on that link. It may pop right up, or you may have to click down here at the bottom like I do. I'm using Chrome right now. So I'm going to click once it comes down to the bottom to open the file, and then we're going to need to save this to your math folder. So the first thing we want to do is click up here where it says enable editing. It's okay to click that if you know where the file is coming from and you know it's something that you're expecting. So click on enable editing. Now we're going to save it. So we're going to go to file, save as, and you're going to choose your math folder. So go to OneDrive, choose your math folder, and click Save. Mine's called Math 7 or Trans 7, depending on the course. And it may take a minute to save. It'll say saving at the top. And then once it's saved, you're good to go to start working on this. Now you'll need to hit Control-S or File Save from time to time as you're working so that you can save your work. So I want to run through this budget and explain a little bit about budgeting, and then you'll be able to start researching for some of the items that are left blank here. The first thing we need to do, however, is we need to calculate our gross monthly income. Your gross income is your income, is how much you get paid before your taxes are taken out. Okay, so I want you to find that number that is your yearly income, the lowest 10%. We wrote that right here under our career research, and then I just asked you to write it under budget so you'd have it. So your lowest 10% salary. Okay, so this is your beginning salary. I told you to find the amount that was the lowest 10%. So I'm going to use the example of $35,000 a year. Okay, so let's say my lowest 10% was $35,000 a year. Well, what I need to do is figure out how much I have per month. So let's click on our spreadsheet, and in cell B21, and you can tell you're in cell B21 because it's the cell that's cells are these little squares, by the way. It's the cell next to the word income, and if you look up here, this is the name area. It tells you the name of the cell you're in. which is the row and the column being intersected. We're in row B, and we're in column B, and we're in row 21, and the intersection of the two is cell B21. So if you look up here, it says B21. That's your name box. So we know we're in cell B21 if it says that right up here in the top left. Okay, so in cell B21, we're going to type a formula. In Excel, to create formulas, you always type equals. That lets your program know that you're going to do a math calculation. So I want you to type equals, and then I want you to type your yearly salary. For me, it was $35,000. Don't put a comma. Okay, don't put a comma. Just equals your yearly salary, and then what would we want to do to that in order to figure out our monthly salary? Divide by 12, right? So division is a / on your keyboard, which is right next to the shift key on the right-hand side of your keyboard. So /12. So you have equals, you have your yearly pay, you have a / for a division symbol, and then 12. Then hit enter on your keyboard, and a whole lot of stuff's going to change. After you hit enter, click away from the cells that have text in them. So here's a tip. If you click on any of these cells that have stuff in them and you type, you're going to mess up your formulas or mess up the information that's there. So just don't click in the ones that have stuff there, okay? So let's think about what all of these things are doing. At the top, we have utilities. Utilities are how much you pay for heating, water, things like that in your house. Your house upkeep is a savings account you need to have for things like painting your house from time to time, having to get things replaced and fixed on your house. We'll come back to car payment. You have to put gas in your car unless you have an electric car. Auto service and upkeep is just like the house upkeep. You have to get oil changes regularly and things done to your car to keep it running well. Allowance is going to be the amount of money that you set aside for yourself for fun. Groceries are just that. Pets is going to be up to you if you want pets, and I'll show you how to determine the price. You want to budget at least $10 a month for gifts, or kind of put some money into savings to buy gifts from time to time. Miscellaneous, you always want to buffer your budget because you're always going to end up with expenses that you don't expect. Clothing, this is going to be one of the last things you fill in, determining how much money you need for clothes. And if you have a very professional job where you deal with the public, you'll have to spend more money on clothes. Same thing with hair, getting your hair done. You're going to need cable, internet, phone package, and I have a price here that's going to be kind of the minimum if you want phone, internet, Hulu, Netflix. It can get a lot more expensive. Savings, you need to save at least $200 a month. This is for your short-term savings. It's for those things that come up that you're not expecting. And then once you get your savings built up, it can also be to go on a trip or buy a big screen TV or something like that. But you have to have savings, and you never want to deplete it because there's always going to be unexpected things that come up. And if you deplete your savings, you end up having to go into debt. Retirement, that's that long-term savings like we saw with Charlene and Marcus. And I actually have it as 15%. So I want you to look up here on the formula bar. So you can see my formula is 0.15 times B21. Well, B21, and you can see the two cells are highlighted here. B21 is my monthly income. So I actually have 15% of my monthly income. And you need to have at least 10%. So right now, leave it as 15%, but if you have to decrease it to 10%, then you would click up there and type and make it a 0.10 instead of a 0.15. I'm going to leave mine as a 0.15 for now. I'll only change it if I'm really tight on money. The next one is taxes. You have no choice in taxes. I have you being taxed at 20%. You have to pay taxes. That's how our roads get fixed. That's how policemen, firemen, teachers, government officials get paid. That's what pays for our schools. That's what keeps our whole country working. So We need to have taxes. They're very important. And then donations, as I mentioned when we talked earlier about money, donations are very important. We all have more money than most people in the world, so it's really important to be donating some of our money to people who are less fortunate. So I have us at least 5% of our monthly income. So that's 5%. 0.05 is 5%. Okay, the total is my total expenses. Right now, my total expenses are $2,547. My income is only $2,917 per month. Remember, this is a monthly budget, and my total difference is a positive $370. Now, if that ends up with parentheses around it, if that 370 had parentheses, that's a negative amount. Our goal is to make the total difference zero. It needs to be exactly zero for this assignment. Okay, so if you're spending too much, you have to decrease some of the sections, and if you're not spending enough, you have to increase some of these choices here. All right. So for me, I only have $370 left for my monthly payment on my house. That's what a mortgage is. It's a monthly payment on a house. For my gas, for my car, my clothing, and my hair. There's no way I can do that with only $370. So I'm going to go ahead. For me, I'm going to come up to retirement. I'm going to have to take this down to 10% of my income. So you can see the less you get paid, the less you can afford to save, right? And I may have to tweak some of these numbers later on as well. So at only $516, I'm going to have a roommate for sure, maybe 2 roommates in order to survive. So let's talk about mortgage. So your mortgage is your house payment. So you all are going to shop for a house and figure out the mortgage. You're not allowed to rent. You have to buy a house, but you can have roommates to help you pay for your monthly mortgage. So if you don't make a lot of money, you have to have roommates. Car payment, you're going to be searching for a car. Everybody has to have their own car, and you're going to figure out how much your monthly car payment will be when you finance it. So let's start with the mortgage, and let me show you how this works. So if you scroll down, we already figured out our net monthly income. It's right here. You divide by 12. Now here it says use the mortgage calculator to see how much the payments would be on a house. Use 5% and for 30 years. So when you take a loan out for a house, people usually take a loan for 30 years, unless they have a lot of money, and then they can take one out for only 15 years. And then the interest rate right now is around 5%, depending on your credit rating. So I'm going to click right here. This is called a loan calculator. You can use this as a mortgage calculator, or you can use this for car loans. We're going to use it for both. So we're going to put in the loan amount. So let's just do an example. You'll actually shop for a house and use this calculator to figure out your monthly payments. But let's just do an example so you know how to use it. Let's say, we'll use my house as an example. Let's say we are buying a $300,000 house. You're not going to be able to afford a $300,000 house right out of college. But let's just say you have a $300,000 house. Our interest rate was 5%. That was in the direction. So we're going to type a 5 for interest rate. And then we're going to calculate this for 30 years. So how many months are in 30 years? Right, 360. Okay, so 30 years, 30 times 12 months in a year is 360 months. So there's 360 payments, 360 months in 12 years. So we're going to click calculate. Everybody click calculate. So what this is doing is taking your loan, it's calculating the interest on your loan, and then it's breaking up that big amount into monthly payments over 30 years. So click on calculate and then scroll down, and you can see the payment amount for every month would be $1,610.46. So that's how much you'd have to pay every month. So if we go back to our back to our spreadsheet, that would go, don't type it in, I'm just doing an example, but that would go here, $1,610. You can just put 10, you can just round. $1,610. To find your car payment is just like finding the house payment. So we're going to scroll down. Everybody do this with me. You're going to click on that same loan that, or excuse me, the same link that we clicked on for our house payment or mortgage. So click on that same link. It's going to take you to that same site, or you could just leave this site up and reuse it. And we're going to figure out our monthly payment for a car. I'm going to do an example for you of a car that would be too expensive for somebody right out of college, but just to give you an idea of a new car price. So we're going to type in $30,000. And now I'm going to look at my spreadsheet and see what it tells me to use. It tells me right here to use 4% for 5 years. So the interest rate right now is around 4% for our interest rate, and 5 years is the typical amount of time people will take a loan out for a car. Well, 5 years in months is 60 months. So this is a $30,000 car that's going to be financed over 5 years at 4% interest. We're going to click calculate. That will tell us our monthly payment. When we scroll down, we see our monthly payment is $552.50. And we also see the total interest that we'll end up paying on this car is $3,000. Well, $3,000 for $30,000 is not that bad. Not like we saw with our house where you end up paying almost the same amount in interest as the house costs. So you pay twice as much for a house often when you finance it, which most people have to do. So anyway, we're going to come down to our payment. We're going to round it to the nearest whole. You don't need to type this in right now. I'm doing this as an example. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet, and up here where the car payment space is, I'm going to type in 553, rounding to the nearest whole. Hit enter. I can see I'm in debt, so obviously that car is too expensive for me. So I'm going to have to delete that and go find another car. But this is how you find your car payment. So as we're looking through this budget, everything that I have highlighted in yellow, you have some flexibility in the cost. You can change the cost of these. Most of these have the least amount put in there for you, so you can't go less. And you'll see in the notes over to the side, you can't go any less than $250 for groceries, for example. Pets, you do not have to have. That's the only cell that you don't have to fill anything in. So now let's talk about what you do when you research your house. So let's go to our website on financial literacy. And we're under the budget, under the project components budget. And I'm going to click on house over here to the side, or I can just scroll down to it. Here's the information about the house. So you're going to have some limits as to what I'm going to allow you to buy. You are allowed to have a roommate, so you can take the prices for your house and you can divide them by however many roommates, or you and the roommates added together. You can have no more roommates than you have bedrooms. So if you have 3 bedrooms, there can be you and 2 other people, 3 people splitting the cost of the house or the mortgage, okay? So now you must purchase something in Raleigh or Cary because house prices differ based on where you are. You may not buy something somewhere else. You must find something that's for sale. You may not rent. And here are the numbers that you can use. For a single family home, that's what a house is called when you buy it, it can be between $200,000 to $250,000. Any more expensive than that's not realistic. Much less than that is probably not going to be a very good house in this area. The townhouses are the like 2-story units. They look like apartments. They're right next to each other. They share walls, but you can purchase those. You can buy a townhouse, and those, if you want a decent one, are going to run $120,000, and I'm going to cap you at $250,000 because you won't be able to afford anything more than that. Condominiums look like apartments. They're 1 stories typically, but you purchase those. My first home was a condominium because they're the least expensive homes you can purchase. And so you can go as low as $90,000 for a decent one. And again, our cap is $250,000 because you're right out of college. So you're going to use this to help you figure out what you're looking for. There are some good websites here to get you started. Zillow is probably my favorite. And again, you can use this link for your monthly mortgage payment or go back to the spreadsheet and use the link that we just used to figure out your monthly payment, which will go right here where it says mortgage. Now, when you're searching for a car, down here, when you're searching for a car, now a car you can get from anywhere, and CarMax is probably my favorite place to look for a car. Cars can be shipped, so you can get one from anywhere, but here's what you have to be careful of. The car has to be 5 years old or younger, so it can be a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, or 5 years old, but it cannot be 6 years old, okay? Because the older they are, the less, we're trying to find a car. The best deal on a car is a new used car. That's a car that's fairly new, has some miles on it. Miles means it's been driven, the motor's been used, but it's not too old and it hasn't been used too much, because if it has, it's not going to be as dependable. And you need a dependable car right out of college. It has to have 50,000 miles or less. That's how much it's been driven, 50,000 miles or less. We don't want one that's been driven more than 50,000 miles because it won't last you a long time. And then your least amount you can spend on a car is $8,000, and the most amount you can spend on a car is $25,000. And then once again, you're going to use either this link to figure out your monthly payment, or the link here that we just looked at to figure out your monthly payment. To finish your budget, your goal is to have a difference of 0, as you can see here in cell B22. So what you want to do is fill in all the information that you have to have, and then tweak everything else based on whether you need to go up or down to meet a total difference of 0. So here in cell B20, we see the total expenses, and B21 is our income for the month. And so the difference between the two should be 0. If you have extra money, you're going to want to add that to your retirement, which I have as at least 10% of my monthly income. And if you look up here in the formula, mine says 0.1 times B21, which means 10% times B21 is the income right here. So 10% of my income is $292. If your formula says 0.15 and you're running out of money, you can decrease it to 0.1. But if you have extra money, I would increase it to 15%. Or 20% or 17% or whatever you can afford. The other place you can add money is savings, and that's your short-term savings, and that helps you to save up so that if there's an emergency, you have money and you don't have to go into debt and you don't have to go into your retirement or your long-term savings. You can afford to keep up with whatever comes your way. So you want to have a good amount in your short-term savings. We have 200 as our least amount, but you could increase that. You could also increase your allowance if you think you might be going out more. Think about $200 is really not that much. So when you're thinking about your allowance, that's how much money you put aside to go out. I want you to just think about going out to eat over here. So I have this broken up into different prices. $7 would be McDonald's, Taco Bell, something pretty inexpensive. $11 is more like Panera, Moe's, something like that. $18 is going to be an inexpensive restaurant. $25 is a basic restaurant. So in this first example, this is just going out to eat 3 times a week somewhere really inexpensive and doing that for a month. That would be $84 a month. The second example would be going out to eat somewhere really expensive twice a week, and then somewhere that's just a little bit more expensive like Panera once a week, and doing that every week would be $100 a month. And then this third example would be going out somewhere inexpensive twice a week, plus going somewhere like Panera or Moe's once a week, plus going to a nice restaurant once a week. That's $200 a month. So $200 can go very quickly for your allowance or going out. And there's other things you'll want to do, like going to movies or sports events or going to the theater. If you're somebody that ends up going out dancing, all those things add up very quickly. So $200 really is the least amount we want for allowance. Your groceries, that's the least you want for your allowance. Again, $250 just for Food Lion. If you want to eat healthier, go to Whole Foods. you're going to be spending a lot more money. So keep in mind that all of these numbers can change. Now, when you're looking at your mortgage, once you figure out your mortgage payment, you can adjust the utilities and the upkeep by scrolling down and looking at this table. The more expensive a house is, often, the more the monthly payment is, the more expensive the utilities and the upkeep. So you can use that to adjust your utilities and upkeep. And for your car payment, I just kind of have it as the more your car costs, the more you'll spend on gas and upkeep, which is not necessarily true, but we're just kind of going with that for this example. And then for pets, if you want a pet, I think I mentioned earlier, you can come down here and see how much pets cost, and that's for cats and dogs. Okay, hair, if you're getting your hair done, you're going to need to get that at least $10 a month, and that's for people who really just need their hair cut every other month and don't do any main big style to it or color or anything like that. If you get your hair cut and colored every month, women that do that, a lot of times for Caucasian hair, that's going to cost around $130 to $250 a month. That can get really expensive. If you don't need, you probably won't need to color your hair right out of college as a young lady. So you're looking at more like $70, $80 a month. So that might need to increase. Clothing, if you have a profession where you are working with the public, you're going to have to spend more money on clothing, just like you do with your hair. And this cable internet phone package is the least you're going to spend. This is really $110 is really just for a really inexpensive phone package each month and internet access. So if you want Hulu or Netflix, you're going to be adding a lot more to that. So assume $20 for Hulu and Netflix combined. If you want Amazon Prime, that's going to be another, say, $8 a month. So all of this adds up. You can increase, almost all of these numbers can be increased, but not many of these can be decreased. And again, your goal is to get a total difference of 0. Once you find the house, I'd like you to put the URL for the house that you chose. And when you find your car, I would like you to put a URL for the car that you chose. So just copy and paste the links to those two into your budget. Now, as far as getting your budget into your blog post, what I'm going to have you do is do a screenshot. So we're going to use our snipping tool. Click on New. And we're just going to, I just want you to get this part of it right here with the numbers and the topics. Okay, and we're going to have to save this. I would just save it to your desktop because you don't need to save it permanently. So save this to your desktop. So under this PC, go to this PC and desktop, and you can just call this budget. Click Save and close it. And then when you go to create your blog post, you're going to insert that into your blog post. So when you create your new blog post about your budget, the first thing you're going to do is type a paragraph about what you learned. Make sure spelling, grammar, punctuation, all of that is correct. And then underneath that, once you're done, you're going to click Add Media. Go to Upload Files, choose Select Files, and then you're going to this PC and you want to look for your desktop, find Budget, and then click Open. And then click right down here in the bottom right, click Insert into Post, and you'll have your budget underneath your paragraph. Make sure to include your tags, FLP, your class tag. This would be Williams P1 for first period. And this is going to be budget. And then click Add. Make sure everything's spelled correctly. Once you add your tags, you should see them beside the blue X's. And then come up here and click Publish, and you'll be done.